Welcome along to this very special On the Whistle podcast. We're giving you a live wrap of what's happened. It certainly was an epic day of action. We had Egypt pretty much booking their spot in the knockout rounds after a controversial, dare I say, win over my Bafana 1-0. But Ali, we have to start in Rabat, where there was incredible drama around Mali and Morocco and a 1-1 draw. I got to tell you before we get going, Ali, I've been known to like biltong. As you can see, this is in Rams. It was very authentic biltong. I've been eating a lot today while the football's on. And because it's Christmas, I'm not sure where you fall on the scale of trifle, but I've been munching on some trifle that we had on Christmas today. I mean, trifle splits a room, perhaps more than a referee's controversial decision. But before we get there, where do you stand on trifle? That's an important question.
That's more important than any of the football questions I have. I have mixed feelings about trifle. I don't really understand it as someone who didn't grow up in the UK. I don't get it. I don't get it. No, my Christmas dinner yesterday was tagine, and today I had couscous for Boxing Day. So very traditional. Zain, I'm here in the stadium in the Stade Moulay Abdallah in the media center. I left actually the press conference is going on right now. I stayed for Tom Samfiet, but not for Walid Regragui. Not because I wanted to hear Samfiet more, but because the translators weren't working.
Sure,
and as someone who does not speak French or Darija, although I appreciate Regragui doesn't speak loads of Darija either, there was no point of me being there. So I've come to hang out with you. But his English is very good. But yeah, I don't think I would get a question in either. Zain, look, what a game, huh? What an exciting game.
Well, I mean, listen, you're the man in the cauldron of it. I mean, like, this is obviously just to throw out some stats, Andy, that you are probably aware of. I mean, this is a world record undefeated run that is now gone. Morocco had it. There were 19 consecutive victories on the trot. Previous record, I think, was Spain and Germany with 15. Of course, they still remain unbeaten in their last 22, stretching back to the last 16 exit at the 2023 AFCON, where one Bafana eliminated them, and we'll get.
I knew you'd bring that up.
Well, listen, I got to find something to spin today, right? But you were in that cauldron. I mean, did it feel like Mali had a chance? I always think Mali are a bit better than people expect, and the coach Sanfit is a friend of the show, so we know that there's a lot of
Zain.
You go.
Zain. Tom Samfiet is the real man of the match in this game, huh? And as you said, we've had him on the podcast once or twice, and to give viewers and listeners a sense of what the guy's like. The first time he came onto the podcast, I, as a university student, messaged him on LinkedIn, just slid into his DMs a couple weeks before the AFCON and asked him if he wanted to come on the show. And
who was he coaching then?
When he was coaching the Gambia.
Yep.
Within a few hours, he replied with a voice note saying he was happy to come on, came on, and then after the tournament came and did like almost, I don't know, it was like an hour and a half, 2 hour show.
Yeah, we turned it into a two-parter.
The two-parter. So if you want to hear a bit more about him, he describes himself as half African. His wife is Zimbabwean. And so he kind of loves this continent. I think he's also coached more national teams than any other coach in the world.
Yeah, that's
fascinating guy. So yeah, if you want to hear more about it, go listen to him. But I think there's two things. One, Mali are a better team than we think, and two, Tom Samfiet came out and performed a masterclass. Look, he's played in Morocco once before in 2019 when he was the head coach of Gambia and he beat them. And he essentially said in the pre-match press conference, we're going to do the same thing we did then. We parked the bus then, and I want to keep my 100% record against Morocco. And he did. And look, Morocco could have won this game. I think it's so easy to, as we said after the first game as well, it's so easy to pile in on the big teams and say, like this wasn't perfect. We see you can do so much more. I think we need to have a level head, which the Moroccans didn't. Zayn, I don't know if there's any team in the world that could go 19 games winning streak, breaking a world record. And one game they don't win, they draw, they don't even lose. They could have won, and they get whistled off, booed and whistled off. It's so interesting. But this is the state that Morocco's in, right? That the demands are so high, the pressure is so high. One thing I'd love to see was the whistles during the game. The atmosphere was so much better than the first game. Let me tell you, the first game, it was exciting and fun and happy, and then once they missed the penalty, the thing deflated. This game was aggressive, the whistling, the passion. This is what we want to see when we see Moroccan football fans coming to the stadium. And we saw it, and it was great to see. From a footballing perspective, yes, I think Morocco, Regragui got a lot of things tactically wrong. I think a lot of Moroccans are sick of seeing Sofiane Amrabat playing in these games. He's a great destroyer, but he's not the guy who's going to unpick midfields and things like this. And actually, Samfiet singled out Amrabat actually in the game. He said, look, we played 5 midfielders because let's not forget Mali played 4 defenders, 5 central midfielders, 4 of whom are defensive midfielders, and 1 winger stroke forward, Lesina Sinioko up front. And he said the reason we did that is so we could push in our midfielders, our wide midfielders, into that center space and really restrict Amrabat, restrict that middle part of what Morocco want to do. So I think we have to give a lot of credit to Mali for playing the game perfectly. What was it, 7 or 8 yellow cards, which is almost a record in the AFCON for one team in a match. They stopped time. They played. They were the villains of the piece, and they played it perfectly. But I think we can also look at Morocco and say, okay, yes, some of Regragui's decisions were questionable. For me, the biggest one that was questionable was his decisions towards the end of the game when he brought on all these random subs. Because Morocco going into this game, because Comoros and Zambia had drawn, right? All Morocco needed to do was draw, and pretty much they've won the group, which they've done now. So pretty much they've won the group because they just have to beat a very poor Zambia side, or match the result that Mali get. They don't even have to beat Zambia; they just have to match the result. But in the last 10 minutes, he threw on all these players, Ben Seguir, El Khanous, El Zazouli, and completely messed up the whole formation of the team. They lost their shape, and Mali, and then with 10 minutes left, Samfiat brought on his attacking players, but there were Doumbia and Dorgelis who were playing in their natural positions as wingers. The team knows the structure, and they almost go and steal it at the end. And I'm sure we'll get into the controversies, but for me, there was a lot of question marks about Morocco's performance. But again, look, they beat Zambia 1-0, they beat Zambia 2-0, they beat Zambia 3-0. Regardless, they've topped the group, they've gotten through it. We shouldn't overestimate how difficult it is. And I think it's easy to look, again, as we've said from time and time again, it is easy. It is so easy from the outside to look at a team like Morocco, look at a team like Senegal, look at a team like Nigeria, these huge teams, and say they should be beating these teams. That's not how it works here, Zain. And we know that. That's not how it works. So credit to Mali and tough one for Morocco.
Yeah, and look, I think one of these teams like Mali, and I know they drew their opening game against Zambia, and Zambia drew with Comoros. Comoros obviously gave Morocco a hard time, but eventually succumbed. I think, Ali, you might have a different opinion here, but I think Morocco are a cut above everybody else. But I think on their day, every team in this group can really make it difficult for anyone to beat. Again, I think Morocco's record speaks for itself, talent speaks for itself. But if you make yourself compact, if you make yourself hard to beat, if you stand up physically and max in that street fighting with that nous that you were talking about how to slow the game and disrupt, you can make yourself very effective against this Moroccan team. In ways that maybe European teams wouldn't play. They wouldn't be as, if I use the word, as cynical. But we got to get to the big talkers. And I feel like we're going to be talking about penalties a lot. But let's get your take on both of them. We'll start with Diaz. And then you can obviously transition to the Mali one.
Zain,
I'm smiling because I think I know where you're going, but you take it away.
Zain, I don't know if you do, because I have a confession to make, is that I haven't seen it. And you know what, Zain? This is the funniest thing. We have TVs in the media tribune. They don't work. They have TVs off. Zain, I didn't see it. I don't know what happened in that first penalty. From what I've heard, it was similar to the South African one with his hand on the ground. But I have no idea. So I've seen the one that could have been a penalty for Mali at the end, which I think was a stonewall penalty.
Well, why don't you start there, and then I'll come in.
Yeah, I'm so sorry to let you down. As the journalist inside the stadium, not only can I not bring you the press conference, but I can't even tell you what happened in the game. It's crazy. It's crazy, I know. For me, the last one is a stonewall penalty. I don't understand how it's not a penalty. Both of Mali's, the first one, correct decision, obvious foul on Sinayoko, but that last one, when Rabat is nutmegged and essentially steps on, I think Dorgales's foot. I don't understand why that's not a penalty. And that's what and this is what I was talking about, saying is Morocco got away with it. Yes, they could have scored. Yes, Saibari, if he taps away that open goal in the first half, which we forget about, and they scored the many chances they have. We don't remember any of this, but they opened themselves up, and Mali played it perfectly and should have had that penalty. Should have won 2-1, to be honest. So for me, that is for me where the real crime of the refereeing was. But yeah, from what I've heard, and you can give me your opinion, that the first one was apparently quite suspect. Zayn, I wouldn't know. I didn't see it.
No. Look, and I think, we certainly think that Rob Stevens from, BBC Sport Africa is a respected voice. Ali, I know you know him.
Yeah, I was catching up with him before the game. Great guy.
And we all know, if anybody knows anything about the BBC, their standards and practices of the highest caliber. So I'm going to read to you the paragraphs that he described the penalty, because I think it's a polite way in saying what happened that maybe shows you what even people who stick to the strictest standards of objectivity have to say. And this is what Rob said. He said, the main talking point came on the stroke of halftime when a fine Diaz dribble into the box saw the ball strike the hand of Gassama, a mere inches from the playing surface, while the defender regained his balance before rebounding straight to the Meanwhile, the referee was urged to consult his pitchside monitor by Tunisian VAR, Haytham Gurat, and it seemed another soft decision after the host benefited from a marginal penalty call against Comoros. Conversely, there was no doubt whatsoever with regard to the Mali penalty. I think that sums it up. I think we are seeing decisions that are confusing fans. I know that we're going to get to Hugo Bruce in a minute, and it would have been lovely to find Fitz at his press conference about the penalty. But it does seem like there was a briefing before the tournament by the match officials with the talking about how these types of handball incidents right? But what's become very confusing and listening to Hugo Bruce and what he was saying post-game after Bafanas was in Egypt was that there's so many different scenarios, it's confusing for everyone. And secondly, there's a lot of interpretation that's going into what is a natural position of the body. And there's a lot of different. In this instance, I think it felt a little bit like a hometown call. And I don't want to say there maybe was anything much wrong to this Morocco, but sometimes in those situations, match officials just feel like they have to make those calls for the home team.
It's immense pressure, isn't it? It's immense pressure. Yeah,
No. So I think from my perspective, this is an interesting group. And we'll get into this and we'll bring it back to this. I mean, it looks like if you're going on a balance of probability, Morocco still top this group. They should have the measure of Zambia, who obviously drew Mali in their opening game, and then they drew the Comoros. And then we'll wait to see what will happen between Mali and the Comoros. You'd imagine Mali would be favorites, but I'm going to be careful in what I say there because Comoros with Mr. Cousin, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah, Stefano. And again, Stefano's been on this pod a couple times. Yes. Great fella. Him and Samfia are fairly good friends, so it'll be interesting to see them kind of going up against each other.
Yeah. Let me get your read on this. You see Morocco top. Who do you see coming through as number 2, potentially number 3?
For me, Zambia, as I kind of thought at the beginning of this group, were my favorites to the bottom, actually. I thought Comoros would beat them. They came very close, obviously, in what is probably the worst game of the AFCON so far. But I think Mali, knowing all they need is a draw, effectively, I think they'll get the job done. I love Comoros. They're my second team here. I have my Comoro shirt sitting at home. Obviously, we've had some of the Comorian guys on our podcast, like Mashiro and Chagama as well. But look, they could do it. Let's be frank, because Mali, as we saw in that first game, Samfiet is perfect for building his teams to fight against these bigger teams. Where he maybe struggles is dominating games. Now, obviously, it's he hasn't had that chance really because he's been managing smaller teams. But even with Mali, he struggled a little bit with that. So that's where the question is for me, whether they can do it. And obviously, Comoros have beaten Mali already. They're in the same World Cup group. They beat them earlier in the qualifiers. And Mali beat them in the reverse fixture. So it'll be a tight one. But for me, Mali will come second, and Morocco will come first. I cannot see a way in which Zambia don't lose that game, to be honest.
Sure. Ali, listen, I'm just gonna say one thing before we transition to the final, because we are potentially going to see Morocco and South Africa play in the knockout rounds, which is going to be colossal in many ways. I'm not sure if you're getting us through your headphones on the computer, but I like it because you're in a press conference. And
Zainab, yeah, the press conference was just finished. So all the Moroccans have come to chat.
Don't worry, that's a good thing. That's a good sign. It shows you're there. But I've got to tell people out there who are watching our show live, please post some comments. Let's fill up our public chat. So if you're consuming us on YouTube, Facebook, X, TikTok, wherever you might be, just pump in those comments. We would certainly love to hear from you. And we have RRC Fitness Club 8708, who has been with us, I think, for every show we've done. Thank you, good sir, for being with us. I'm presuming you're a good sir, that is. And RRC Fitness Club's 8708 says, Bafana was robbed by, and then crying emoji, that bloody Burundian referee, bloody Salah. Sure, colleagues benefited today. It wasn't finished there. Hugo Bruce, you've called him Brooks, but we'll call him Bruce, was coward today. Imagine 3 defensive midfielders, and worst part, bench president Yama 2K Mofokeng just to start Moremi. Egypt game was made for Mochapa and Mofokeng. El Presidento, heart. The Burundian referee, Al Ahly referee, really robbed Bafana. I can't hear you, Ali, so you're gonna have to try again. Crying face. I am really not surprised that the Burundian referee loves to help Al Ahly in CAF Champions League. Well, listen, RRC Fitness, it's wonderful to hear from you. We can't say we endorse all your opinions, but we certainly love hearing the honesty and the just the naked fandom that exists. So thank you for that. If you're asking me as somebody who watched it, and I'll wait for Ali to join us, I mean, Ali, maybe you can be the voice of reason here, because I will have a very strong opinion on that penalty. And Hugo Bruce has been talking about this after the game, and Hugo said something along the lines of, even Salah went up to him after the game and said he was surprised it was a penalty. I mean, look, I'm going to say something weird here. I guess if you look to the letter of the law, someone might argue that that was a penalty. But we all know, we see those incidents week in, week out in amateur football, club football, and at the highest level, not given. 9 out of 10 times, that is not given. And if it is, it's very, very soft. So to see that being given was just bizarre, absolutely bizarre. And then later in the game, when South Africa had their opportunity to get a penalty, and there was certainly enough enough circumstance to give it, to say that hand was in a natural position, and that's the interpretation, given what we just saw get called in the Mali-Moroccan game, speaks to an inconsistency that must make fans incandescent with rage and anger. Obviously, Ali, I have a horse in the race. I'm a Bafana fan. Did you see the Salah penalty any different? Do you see anything that?
Sorry, Zain, I'm trying to join onto my phone's better microphone.
You're in twice. Pick one and rotate.
How am I doing? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. You just need to rotate the screen, and then we can see you perfectly. You see, this is the beauty of doing a live show, guys. The beauty of doing a live show is that Ali is horizontal, and now I can't hear him. Are you on your phone or your laptop? You might just need to flip it. Well, Ali's gone again. So I'm going to keep going. And I'm going to keep saying, I'm going to get some of these comments up. I mean, you guys want to see this RRC Fitness Club. is always with us. And again, clearly states he thinks that Bafana was robbed. Really angry with the Burundian referee, and I can understand why. Talks about Hugo Bruce, who's described as Hugo Brooks here, and criticizing some of the decisions and who should have started. So I can see why that's important. And of course, um, going in a little bit deeper into the referee, here RRC Fitness says Al Ali benefited last season in 2024-2025 CAF Champions League home and away against Al Hilal. Well, listen, Ali, looks like you're back with us. I've spoken a lot.
I'm back.
What's your take, brother?
Yeah. Okay. I'll preface this by saying I didn't see the Morocco penalty, right, which obviously was very similar to South Africa's. For me, I'll go through the two incidences. Okay. For me, Bafana's penalty should not have been a penalty. And for me, even when I saw it at the time, I remember hearing on the commentary because I was watching it on TV. It was Robbie Knock and Amanda Dlamini, and they were both like, "This is a penalty. It's a stonewall penalty." And I remember turning to my colleague and saying, "Correct me if I'm wrong, but the rules are if the hand is down supporting him, it's not a penalty, right?" And he's like, "Yeah." And they went and checked. And yeah, I went back and went through the IFAB rules, and yes, they say that if the hand is going down because you're falling, and it doesn't say falling which excludes slide tackles, because I've had a lot of people coming and speaking to me and saying, "Oh, but he was slide tackling. He wasn't falling." It's considered the same thing. If you are falling and your hand sticks out to the ground as a form of support, it is considered as being in a natural position. And so for me, that is why that penalty, there is no doubt it was not a penalty. And again, I want to make this clear because some other people have come up to me and saying, "Oh, but it wasn't a handball, but it was a handball before. But then once it was in that penalty book, well, VAR does not work on a one issue policy. If you go to VAR, right, they're not just going and saying, okay, we're checking this one thing that you're asking us to check. They check every aspect of it. So yes, the initial foul was given for a handball because the referee thought he saw a handball, gives the free kick. He then goes, okay, we're going to take it upstairs to VAR. VAR, what they have to do is they have to check, is it a handball? Then they have to check, is it in the box? In the same way that they also have to check, is it offsides? They have to check everything. And so for me, they check everything and they say, yes, it's inside the box, but it's not a handball because he's supporting himself. Now, the Salah penalty, I think, is different. I think Salah penalty is one of those where I think it's incredibly harsh, and I can see why Bafana fans are so upset about it. I can see why it's given. I don't think it's a stonewall decision, as I think the Bafana one was, and that for me is why it makes it a difficult thing. Because I remember again, same thing, thinking, you see those given all the time in the midfield. Player's hand goes up, other one holds his hand, goes down, free kick. No one questions it. So by that principle, okay, yes, it should be a penalty. For me, where the issue comes in, right, is it's not clear and obvious whether there's a foul, and obviously that is what VAR is principled on. So for me, if that was given as a penalty, I would argue it should stay as a penalty. But because it wasn't given as a penalty, I would argue it should have been turned over as a penalty. I appreciate that as Bafana fans, as yourself, both decisions going against you, you feel that pain. For me, that first one was contentious. For me, the second one wasn't. Now, given what happened in the Morocco game, I didn't see why it couldn't be contentious. Like I said, I haven't seen the Morocco one, but from what it sounds like it's very similar. So it could also be very contentious. But for me, that's kind of how I saw the Bafana ones, kind of as a quasi neutral. Because obviously I love Bafana, but I'm also not from South Africa.
So you're of the opinion, I'm just going to be very clear here, that you do not think it was a penalty, correct?
South Africa's.
Yes.
Yes, I do not think that it was a penalty. The handball. Yeah, I don't think it was a
You're
penalty.
100% sure on that?
I am 100% sure on that.
You sure?
No, not anymore. The way you're saying that, because I feel like you're about to pull something up that proves me wrong.
Well, I'm gonna just quote Mike McCobb. He is a prominent
Zane.
South African commentator.
No, you're gonna quote a referee, not an agent.
Well. He says here he was a part of the technical team that won the AFCON in 1996. I've interviewed him in many capacities before in a former life, but he effectively the analysis that you gave matched what Supersport had done in studio. And then he took to social media to say, and I'm going to get it up here for you, Ali. I'm just scrolling. Just give me a second. But he was effectively saying that that interpretation by Supersport and others like yourself was incorrect.
Why is that?
Because he said, important exception, it would be a handball offense and typically a penalty if in the penalty area, if the arm hand is extended in a way that makes the body unnaturally bigger. E.g., the arm is deliberately outstretched away from the body in an unnatural position, not purely for support. Sorry, Thomas and Lumbo, I totally disagree. The rule applies to a player that falls and uses his arm to break his fall. In this case, he intentionally lunged forward with his arm outstretched. And by the way, your advice to young players is incorrect. You cannot slide tackle with your arms away from your body and get away from it. So that was what Mike saw, and you see it differently to that, correct?
Correct. Very, very much so. I think for me, I don't know. And look, I appreciate South Africans will have their opinions. I haven't gone over it as many times as probably Mzansi have. For me, what do you expect his arm to do? Right? If because I've seen some people saying, "Oh, it's because it was horizontal, a little like angled, as opposed to straight down." Guys, Usain, you've played rugby. What is the first thing they tell you when you're being tackled and you're falling towards your arm? They tell you not to stick your arm out because if you stick it directly out, you'll break your wrist, you'll break your elbow.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. You can't stick your arm out directly down. You have to do it at the angle. He's slide tackling. You can go outside right now to a wet pitch and slide and see where your arm goes. I'll tell you, Zane, it doesn't go straight down. It goes at an angle. And look, yeah. So I totally disagree with Mike McCall. Like you said, he's an agent, very well respected man. I completely disagree with him because he's saying that the exception if it's an unnatural. For me, again, Zane, there is an issue again with VAR. There's a burden of proof issue, right?
Hmm.
Because what he's saying is he's saying yes, if you're using your arm to support you, it's not a penalty unless it's in an unnatural position, which by IFAB's rules is considered to be an unnatural position if you are intentionally handballing it. So what you have to prove in that VAR is that Yasser Ibrahim is intentionally handballing in handball. You're not contesting whether he accidentally hit it or how comfortable he was. You're contesting whether he intentionally handballed it. And for me, Zayn, you can't prove that. Okay, and I don't mean that in like a moral sense. I mean we can't prove that. We're having a discussion here about it. And for me, what does that tell me, Zane? It's not clear and obvious. And that's what VAR's threshold is. It's clear and obvious. So
Sure.
I say this with all the love to South Africans, and I feel that if it was my team, I would be furious. I would hope that I would still accept the decisions, but I would be furious because emotionally it feels terrible. But I do think that one was, for me, the right decision. The other one, I think, more contestable, to be honest.
Well, listen, Ali, I know it's getting late your side and you're in the bowels of a stadium, but let's go for two more questions. And anyone out there, please post your comments, populate it. You know what you guys do out there to me? You wait for me to say I'm going, and then you drop
Every
a
time.
whole bunch of stuff in there, and then I can't leave because we're around Africa's biggest football braai. And Ali is the one you really want to talk to. He's in the stadium. You know what I mean? I'm celebrating.
It's like, clearly, I'm in the stadium, but I don't know anything. You're seeing more than me. You're in the UK.
And again, just to shout out our friend, and I'm going to get one of his comments on RRC Fitness Club 8708. Loving all your feedback, loving all the knowledge, loving all the examples. Keep them coming. We'll get them up. So I'm going to ask you two questions, Ali, and then I think we'll see where we go from there. But looking at Egypt, they obviously came in here as one of the favorites. Bafana maybe more of a sleeper team. I mean, what do you think after this game of both these teams' title credentials? Are they in the Morocco sort of bracket? Even though Morocco drew today, are they elite enough to win it?
That's okay. That's a tough one. For me, Egypt are certainly. I think this game does not tell us much about Egypt, to be honest, because they had a weird penalty, a silly red card, and what I guess the one thing it tells us is they can play a bit more defensively structured. which they did. Against Zimbabwe, they were hopelessly open in that first half, but they were much better against Bafana defensively, and then good, good in the transition in the first half. The second half, I don't know why Salah stayed on. You need a center forward to do your running and hard work. Bring on Mustafa Mohammed. To be fair, Salah did have his moments in that second half as well. But so for me, it doesn't tell us too much about Egypt. I still think Egypt are in that conversation. To be honest, I still have Morocco at the top. Look, these tournaments, they take as you said to me as a journalist, but more so as a football player, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So for me, I don't want to read too much into Morocco's kind of subpar performances. Bafana, I'm not convinced. I hear what Fitness is saying. CR Fitness is saying about the selection, and I agree. I was surprised that Moremi was starting. I was surprised Mofokeng didn't start. I appreciate, maybe some of us have an Orlando Pirates hat on. But for me, I wanted to see Mofokeng. I wanted to see Nkota. I wanted to see these guys have a go because we've seen Bafana play some top stuff games, and especially in that first half, Egypt conceded the game to South Africa. Egypt said, "Look, we appreciate, we respect Bafana. We see that you're a better ball playing side than us. We're going to hit you on the counter attack. We're going to play defensive football." And Bafana, I feel in the second half, instead of saying, "Okay, let's double down, let's dominate you," we didn't see that. And again, for me, yeah, it's tough seeing the defensive midfielders playing constantly. When you have Mbule up in front of Sitole and Mokone, yes, against Morocco, play that way. Absolutely. But against Egypt team that you're going to dominate, and especially in the second half, right? First half, you don't know what the game is going to be like. And again, I'm struggling a little with Teboho Mokoena because when South Africa need to break down a team, yes, he's the Steven Gerrard, he's the captain, fantastic. He's the guy who's going to score a wonder goal. He's also going to shoot 6 times over the bar from 30 yards, And we didn't see the patience. We didn't see the build-up. We didn't see them probing Egypt, Egypt wasn't really challenged all that much, and so for me, this game is a blow for Bafana because you're gonna come second. You're in that tougher draw. Suddenly the groups the knockout phase become all that more difficult. So for me, it is a huge blow for Bafana. I'm not gonna lie. And we always knew this was going to be the heavyweight game of the group stage. These two teams coming at each other. So for me, I don't know what you think about Bafana, but I'm not convinced yet, and I'm not convinced. I wasn't against Angola, to be honest. I wasn't as convinced coming into the tournament as I think some others of us who watch CAF Champions League football, who watch Pirates, who watch Sundown.
Sure.
I think you did so well in the last tournament because you were underestimated. This time you are estimated, and so you have to find new ways of beating teams. Look, Hugo Bruce is the expert. If anyone's going to find the solution, it's him. As I said, it's a marathon, not a sprint. But I've been a little underwhelmed by Bafana.
Well, look, I'm going to come back at you with some of that and say, look, I think I agree with you that South Africa were so unexpected at the last AFCON. I think they surprised us all in how well they've done, and I agree with you there. However, I would say this time around, even though they've been on a pretty good, consistent run, even though they qualified for the World Cup with a points deduction and saw, Nigerian team that had lots of talent but couldn't put it together, a Rwandan team that showed flashes of brilliance, and then we had Benin going into the last 2 rounds looking like they were going to make it, right? It's a pity I think they pay all their games away from home. Otherwise, it maybe could have been a different story. So I think I would argue, Ali, that South Africa has shown consistency under Bruce. They've qualified for the World Cup, but I don't think they get the respect that the other nations that have bigger names do. Because who's our standout? It's Lyle Foster, right? So going into this tournament, I felt pretty good about their chances. And, speaking to the likes of Mark Stradham and Brahma Schlatzi, the 2 doyens of South African football, saying things like, we have expectations now as fans. We see semis as where we should be going, and it's good to have those expectations. I don't think other Africans still do that because we don't have the sexy names. I think it's still Bruce doing it with the team collective. I just wanted to address that first. Secondly, and I'm going to bounce this back to you quite quickly, is that I want to get your opinion. Who's it worse for in a knockout round? Is it worse for Bafana to play Morocco? Or is it worse for Morocco to play Bafana? Who will not like that game more?
Zay, let me tell you this.
Say one word: launch. And obviously, he's not in the squad, right? And there've been some memes about him needing to be here against Egypt. But who would be more uncomfortable with that game?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. You know, if there's a team that Morocco probably have nightmares about, you know, well, who was the last team they lost to? You know,
South
Bafana
Africa,
Bafana.
AFCON.
And you know, I was knocking Teboho Wakwana for him taking silly long shots, but if if he could take that free kick again? Wow, 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 wow. But yeah, as in for me, it's tough now, right? Because if you win this group, you're playing a third place team. We don't know who that'll be. Then Cote d'Ivoire. We don't know what to expect from them. Then Senegal. Now instead, you're playing Cameroon likely, who comes second in that group. Then you're playing Morocco. And then you're playing potentially Algeria. That is so tough. Like that is so tough. So and very different battles, right? Cameroon's such a different side to Morocco, such a different side to Algeria. So yes, I do think you guys could do a job of Morocco. I think if anyone could, Hugo Bruce and your guys, you showed Mali how to do it. You know, that's exactly what you guys did to them in that game in the last tournament. But I just think the burden of playing so many good teams to get to the finals, that's going to be really tough for you guys.
Yeah, but also, and again, I'm gonna bring in a comment now. I think playing good teams is good for the World Cup. We want to go into the World Cup battle hardened and tested, right? Like we need to play these games and we need to know we can win it. Because what's going to happen when we run out to play Mexico in the opening game in the Azteca, right? Like, you can't have these guys crapping the bed.
100%.
My French.
If there's one place that'll prepare you for the Azteca, it'll be playing Morocco at home. That's very true.
Exactly.
But Zane, do you want to win the AFCON or do you want to be prepared for the World Cup? You know, I'd rather win the AFCON.
Honestly, for us, I would, this is a World Cup year, right? This is a World Cup year. Well, I mean, we're not in 2026 just yet, but everything is to that World Cup, brother. Otherwise, why would you want to peak before that? Um, while we're chatting, I'm just gonna. I mean, RRC Fitness Club 8708. So it's great free advertising, right? Comment is Senegal, Algeria, Ivory Coast, Tunisia, and Burkina Faso are the real contenders for AFCON 2025. What's your reaction to that, Ali?
I mean, I wouldn't say real contenders, but I say definitely exciting teams. I mean, like, say, for instance, Burkina Faso, I don't think you can call them a contender because, contenders have to be teams that are realistically going to win it. But I think, could they spring a surprise and go deep and then maybe work something? I think so. I really like them. I really think they've got a great team, really well balanced, great attacking players, solid midfield. Same with Cote d'Ivoire. I think there's a bit more questions. Is this an elite team or is it not? We don't know because the last AFCON told us so little in terms of their actual level because it was just nonsense the way they got to that final and won it. But I do think, again, phenomenal team. Amad Diallo looks superb. Diomande on the other wing. Zaha is very unconvincing though. So I think there's question marks over that. So we'll have to wait and see, Zayn, to be honest. And I think we shouldn't rush into these things because as the last AFCON told us, and as every AFCON tells us, man, whoever wins the group
So unpredictable.
anything. It doesn't tell you anything. And the real battle begins in the round of 16.
Well, listen, Ali, let's round the braai off nicely now. I'm not going to surprise you here, but it's RRC Fitness Club with the final point saying Regragui needs to revisit and go to tactics that helped him win the CAF Champions League with Wydad Casablanca. And that will help Morocco win AFCON 2025. Do you have a take on that?
Yeah, very quickly because I have to go. I do respectfully disagree. Right, Regragui built his success with Wydad off of being defensively resilient, very strong at home, and then dogged fighting it away from home. But they didn't really dominate teams because that's not Wydad's football. That's not the way they played. A defensively first minded team. And then obviously, look, they did brilliantly to win the AFCON or the CAF Champions League, but let's not forget they played a one-legged final at home against Pizza's Alephi. So, he was able to play a certain way because he was able to play that match at home. Yeah, to be fair, Morocco are playing at home here. I think actually what he needs to do is perhaps trust his players a bit more, some of these younger guys that have serious talent and play slightly bolder lineup. And for me, I mean, Saibari not been impressed, but he's playing out of position. And I think a few of these other youngsters, like El Khanous, like El Zazuli, I think maybe it's time to start giving him a shot. But yeah, I think it's a tough gig. And as I said at the beginning, I don't think we should judge too harshly because you know he will not be judged off this group stage. He will be judged off of whether they get knocked out and then knock out and whether they win it. That's the reality. So I think we shouldn't judge too early.
Sure. Ali, it's late in Rabat. We need to let you get back and rest. Thank you for being live with us tonight. We wish you well. We look forward to chopping it up with you again tomorrow and along the way. We certainly thank you for your analysis and insight. For those listening out there, please like, subscribe to our YouTube channel, our Facebook, On the Whistle Podcast. Please follow us at all our social accounts, OTW_ podcast on X, on TikTok, on Instagram, and leave comments, leave reviews. It helps people find the show. And if you have any final questions, post them here in the chat or post them on social media. We will get to them at some point. Alistair, we wish you well. Salagashle for now.